Hi, welcome back to the Chakra House of Healing, and this is our special Talk That Talk episode on the Chakra House of Healing. And today I'm with Tariq again, and what are we talking about today?
Well, I thought we'd continue our talk from the last episode by looking at the idea of evolution, how we all evolve individually. And since we were talking in the last show about, the resolutions we make every year and how we want to change and what we want to become.
Yes.
And we were having a conversation recently about some very kind of intense topics, the sense of self and who we are and how we become,
Yes.
and how important that is for us to accept and acknowledge that life's about change. If we are moving forward, the one constant that we can depend upon in our lives is change.
Yes.
And, in the work you do with energy, Reiki, and hypnosis, you come across individuals who are facing change in their lives.
Yes.
But for whatever reason are refusing to accept or perhaps even acknowledge that that change is required of them. And oftentimes we tend to...
And they're scared. Sometimes they're just scared.
Absolutely. And usually that comes from a fear of not knowing what's around the corner, feeling really comfortable with where you are, knowing yourself in that moment. And
their self-esteem. I mean, their own self-esteem at that moment, too.
Oh, absolutely.
And what they're carrying, the baggage that's with them.
Right. And so, as we were saying in the last discussion, that low self-esteem, that low self-worth, that part of ourselves that would typically stand in the way of us acknowledging and accepting and embracing the change, necessarily requires us to be more self-aware as to what's creating that. And it can come from so many different things in our lives. It can come from our youth, our childhood, from the things we've experienced around ourselves. It can come from things that just happened yesterday that we've seen on the news or we heard from a friend. But at the end of the day, it speaks to recognizing that there is something within us that needs to be addressed. Now, oftentimes when we approach these types of topics, we're looking at it from a psychological point of view and we're saying, okay, what is your serotonin level, or what's happening in your life, or what are people saying or doing to or around you, and I think that's an absolutely valuable approach. We want to start there.
It is. I mean, there's a lot of things you ask, especially when they're stressed and they're having anxious and whatever. It's even right down to what are you eating?
Exactly.
Right. So what's your diet like?
Right. And so when a client comes in to see me, we go through those basic things to make sure that first and foremost, what is immediately affecting us is taken care of. Because then we also want to recognize that there is something that goes beyond the physical, into the metaphysical, as you've alluded to in quite a number of the shows. And that would be, for me, an aspect of what I want to focus on as just consciousness. And kind of recognizing that we are, you want to call it a soul, you want to call it an energy, but we are a being of consciousness that exists.
Something else, right, definitely a higher being.
Exactly,
right?
Beyond the physical form.
And a paradox, too, because we're a limitless energy in this limited body.
Right. And it's great that you said that, because we were talking,
I say great things once in a while.
You do, more than once in a while, but we still cherish them. But anyway, I think when we acknowledge that change is the one thing we can depend upon,
right,
what we also want to recognize is that contrast is typically what fosters change. Because if everything is good, if there's nothing that needs to be addressed in your life, then what's the point of change?
But whose life is like that?
Exactly.
Whose life is like that?
Right. And so we all have contrast in our lives, and
yes.
for whatever reason, we may not want to acknowledge or embrace that contrast, and therefore, in rejecting that, we also reject the opportunity to change. Now, I mean, it's probably cliche now by saying change can be a good thing, but it is. It's not that it can be a good thing. It is.
Ultimately, isn't this, I mean, the way that I describe it is that this is Earth School.
Yes.
Okay, so we're here to learn. I mean, our whole lives are about learning. We go to school, we take grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, we might take some university courses, we might move on to learning. We're constantly learning.
Absolutely.
And just even being on this planet is learning. And everyone's life, every adventure, every hardship, everything that we go through, there is something to be learned from that.
I know, and I think I've had some teachers who would have put that in a way that says, that you're remembering what you already know. And it's true, it's the same thing more or less, but being said in a different way. And I think, if we can accept that some of the aspects that flow into our lives we may not enjoy them, we may not want them to be there. I mean, quite often when we face contrasts of a certain nature, we would rather just shut the door and stay in bed all day.
Right.
But, you know,
Or
we
not
have to
deal with
acknowledge.
it. I don't want to deal with it.
Right. And we have to acknowledge. I think it's important for us to acknowledge that sometimes it's okay to say, okay, I don't want to face it today, because you know yourself better than anyone else. And so if you need a day where you can just sit and be and allow yourself to feel whatever it is you're feeling, before you can then take that step into embracing and accepting and flowing into the change, then that's what you need to do. If you find that you have a string of days like that,
a string of days you got to deal with.
then we
are here for a purpose.
Absolutely.
And we are here to learn something. And maybe we may not learn our purpose this time around, but we're going to learn it. And if you avoid it, it's not going away.
Right.
Like, you're going to have to face it at some point.
And I feel like at this point in human evolution that our consciousness has evolved to a space where we are almost beginning to see literal manifestations of our collective consciousness almost in an instantaneous way.
Okay. English. Say that again in English.
So if we look around the world, you're seeing a lot of bad stuff. I'm editing myself for language.
Good.
But bad stuff happening. And it's happening quite quickly and very rapidly. And if you look at the patterns of what's happening in different places around the world, it's the same thing. At the same time, however, we also have a lot of really good things happening. And I feel as though our world is divided into two spheres at this point in time. We have those who choose to focus on fear and perpetuate stigmas that hold us back and that create this fear of change. And then we have those who are more open and acknowledge that the world is changing and we need to adapt and change with it. And unfortunately, it's easier to fall into the hole than it is to climb out of it. So with enough voices kind of putting that fear-based mentality out there, I think a lot of people are buying into it. And if you think of it, it's almost...
But adapting and changing with it is very funny that you should, like, not funny, haha, but funny because I'm finding that people are starting to change with the world, but looking to ancient times, the way that things were, like they're looking for healings and help and ways to feel better using ancient ways rather than modern ways that they've been using all along.
I feel...
Am I wrong?
No, I think you're right. Modern ways, I feel, or I choose to, and you can completely disagree with this if you so choose, but I feel it's man-made in a way. Think of it as, you know, having a drug that was chemically synthesized for you, versus plant extract that could have a similar effect. And we have, I think, one group of people in our world. And I feel, you know, this particular group is part of that fear-based mentality that tells you, you know, don't feel this, don't think this, don't do this, take this pill and it'll help you. But then you and I are experiencing more and more people kind of recognizing the importance of a holistic approach in acknowledging that they are dealing with challenges that are relevant to their own growth, their own evolution. They're choosing natural remedies that come from the earth that allow them to tap into their own strength, their own power, and kind of use these natural remedies as a way to supplement what they can do on their own.
And as they feel better, it almost emanates from them, like
Absolutely.
to other energies, to other people's energy.
Right.
Right.
And so I feel like we have these two groups, and I don't want to call them opposing because I think they each have value.
Right.
And, you know, we need to have those who have the fear to say what they need to say so that we can become aware of, you know, what may necessarily need us to pay attention to that comes from that fear-based perspective. I mean, if we get rid of fear, we can get into all sorts of trouble. But we also need to have, I think, louder voices on the other side who are speaking to approaching things from a position of hope, you know, of idealism. And I often have people who would say to me, as if it's kind of like a derogatory kind of approach, that I'm idealistic. And I never understand why people would say, you know, idealism is a bad thing.
Well, let's talk about idealism in a second. And let's go to a Zen break.
I'm Eleanor Vandenberg with Live to the Max. I'd like to tell you about a breakthrough product called Cellgevity. Cellgevity raises glutathione, our body's most important antioxidant. High levels of glutathione aids our body's fight against inflammation and disease. I had pain and inflammation in my knees. I had trouble going up 14 stairs in my home. In less than 3 months, not only could I go up those 14 stairs, I could do 288 twice in half an hour with zero pain. Cellgevity is Health Canada tested and approved. It is Banned Substance Control Group approved. Find out more about this powerhouse along with a list of 74 diseases associated with low glutathione. Call, text, or email me. You don't have to suffer in silence. Take control of your health. Live healthier, live longer, live happier, live to the max.
Welcome back. So, idealism.
Right. So I think it's important that it first starts with the self.
Right.
And recognizing for you what would make an ideal world. And
Which is different for a lot of people. Like when we've talked about what makes people happy, happy to me means
absolutely
something different to you, to mean something different to someone else. So idealism is also mean different things to different people.
And I think that's what makes our world beautiful, because what you find makes you happy would necessarily introduce into the world something that I would never think about.
Right.
Yet, if I'm in a position where I am fully cognizant or aware of what is important for my
No
ideal
words
world,
past 5 letters.
but what's important for my ideal world, then I would create that for myself. And that would put me in a position where I can at least appreciate what makes your world ideal for you.
Right.
But if I'm in a place where all I can think about is you are enjoying your life, your world, and you're doing so by taking from me, then that puts me in that fear-based position where now we're going to be in conflict. And you see, I feel like even that could be an opportunity for us to learn from that contrast. So it's a very tenuous position. It's a fragile place to be.
There's things to learn from everything.
Absolutely. But we want to be able to always have that approach where we're acknowledging that what we're creating is something better.
Yes.
And
it's important now. I find that more and more people, and going back to like Western and Eastern, what they call Western and Eastern and ancient medicines, there is a place
absolutely
for both. I mean, let's face it, if all of a sudden tonight I had some kind of a stroke and they're calling an ambulance for me, I'm not going to say, Tariq, come over here and give me Reiki. Like,
right.
There is a place
right.
for things. And at some point you have to say, okay, they looked after me, my immediate concern.
Right.
How am I going to move on from this? Am I going to continue with the Western medicines and stuff and Western healing, or am I going to take it somewhere else?
Well, if we look at how we were kind of discussing, the self, we have the physical, which is the body, and then we have everything else. And I think allopathic medicine, Western medicine, has been developed with a focus on the physical, on what is present, what is here right now.
Right.
And so if you're dealing with a challenge that is immediate, present in the physical body right now, then that's the approach you take, because that's been developed with that in mind.
Right.
But we also acknowledge that oftentimes physical symptoms are a manifestation of something
deeper,
right.
much deeper, much spiritual. I mean, everything that happens to us affects our spiritual plane
right.
first.
And so we then would have practitioners who go beyond that and kind of explore what's happening there in that realm of energy, what's happening there in that realm of consciousness that may necessarily need to be addressed. Now,
I call it hoarding now. This is my new thing, because I think that as we go through life and we're dealing with different things, we're actually creating these energy blocks.
oh yeah.
And the longer we don't deal with it, the more energy blocks we get, and it becomes like a hoard, like this house that's just full of energy
Absolutely.
blocks that we're not dealing with, and someone's got to go in and like clear the clutter, right?
I mean, if you use that analogy literally, I was going through my desk the other day and there was like a post-it note from 3 years ago, and I'm thinking, oh, that might be something important. I'll look at it later. And I put it back and I'm thinking, why am I doing that? But if you kind of think of yourself as an energetic being, you have had experiences in your life that may have been good and some may not have been great. And we look at these experiences, and for whatever reason, we look at something that might have been bad and think, I might need to reference that later. And we keep it, we hold on to it, whether it be something that...
And we keep the whole thing instead of just keeping the piece
exactly.
that we need to keep from it.
We keep the feeling of betrayal, we keep the feeling of loss, whatever that may be negative. But realize that, you can transform. These are energies. You can transform the negative into whatever you want it to be that could support you, sustain you, uplift you. But, that requires work. That requires a greater degree of self-awareness. And why I wanted to talk about kind of like the societal influences and what's happening in the world around us is we have to acknowledge that we are a synthesis of the self and the world around us. We respond to the world around us. What's happening around us is co-creating how we identify ourselves, how our consciousness evolves within the self. So I think it's
But
important
what if
for
we're
us.
not aware of the world around us, like me? You know, I've been on a news fast for like 2 years, so I don't really, unless someone comes up and tells me about something,
Right.
I have no idea what's going on,
But it
and
would-
I'm good there.
It could still have an influence on you because I may have read the news today and you know, read about something that wasn't so great, and I could have come in here with a bad energy, a bad mood, and you know, I'm not saying it could contaminate you, but it would have some influence on you because of our interaction. So I don't think that you have to go out there and become like a news hound and know everything that's happening, but at least be aware of what's happening in your world, what's happening in your immediate community, and then go as far out of that as you can, because you're wanting to be aware of the influences that are playing upon you.
I think my immediate community is right here. I'm good with
Well,
this.
you surround yourself with people of a
I
certain,
do, and,
right?
and I choose, and I'm thoughtful about the people that I'm bringing into my life because I've been in that negative place.
Right.
Right, and I have no intention of going back there again. And I like the way that I feel now, and I like the feeling of my home and my clinic and my energy and everything that's going on here. So why the news is the news, and there's nothing good in it.
Well, we've talked about your experiences in the corporate world and how, you know, you've gone into certain situations that were not
I am
so great.
politically retarded. Like there's really, it's like I'm an illiterate when it comes to, and I used to be in the corporate world, and I'd have to go to board meetings or do stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't want it. Why? Because I'm very direct.
Right.
I'm not a foo-foo kind of person, and I also can't say things just because you want me to.
Right.
Right? Because everybody else in the room is saying it.
you
I'm
see-
not a little sheep, and that was like I was having problems with that.
But you were self-aware enough to recognize that, to acknowledge it, and then to figure out what you needed to do to create around yourself the environment that would support you.
Right.
There are other people out there who may be exactly like that, but they don't have the option, at least at this point in time, to create that environment around themselves that would be as supportive as you've created for yourself. Or there may be others who might fit into such an environment, but you still need to be aware that even though you might thrive in such an environment where there's constant conflict, it still affects you. And if you're not paying attention to the self and how it's affecting you, then you tend to be hanging on to these negative energies. I've had clients who've worked in the corporate world for years, and nothing is wrong, but they'll come to me and they'll say, I'm not happy, I feel stressed, I'm anxious. I've had clients who woke up one morning with panic attacks and anxiety, never having had it in their lives for 40, 50 years. And where is that coming from? It can manifest from a number of different things. It can manifest from something that happened in your childhood, from your subconscious mind, or it could literally be that you're in an environment.
And something's triggered it. And
Exactly.
something, recent has triggered it and brought it to the surface. Definitely.
So we need to pay attention.
I think we need an 8-hour show.
I don't know if that's going to be enough time.
Yeah, maybe we just need them to stay there for. Can you guys just stay there forever and just continue to tape us like for the rest of our lives while we just stay here and talk and drink wine?
Or how about the next time we take a road trip, we'll have like a little dashboard cam on there. And we'll talk.
Most definitely.
We'll have to edit it though.
Okay. Well, once again, we come to the end. And if you had one message to give from what we've been talking today,
I think I'd want that message to be kind of resonating with what we said last time. Be aware of who you are, who you want to be, versus who other people think you are and who they want you to be.
who they want you to be. And lately I've been working with clients that once I get them to a certain point, and we've done a lot of work and a lot of healing, it's just to make them to understand and see the world as a child. To
yes.
remember seeing everything for the first time, seeing the tree for a first time, seeing the snow, how wondrous it was, how excited you were to see it, how every activity that you did was so amazing, and you could make up games and have fun, and just seeing the world fresh, clean,
Absolutely.
new. Now that you've released all your garbage, now it's a clean slate, and it's a way to see yourself brand new, see everything brand new.
You do something that I think would be great for other people to use as a kind of a benchmark for themselves, and that is you laugh out loud. Very few people laugh out loud.
Laughter is amazing, and I think that, in high school, guys would not date me because of my laugh. I'm not even joking. I was told that I laughed too loud and people would not even want to be around me when I was laughing. And the weird thing is, laughter is such a positive thing
Yeah.
that it actually my take on it, and just a few things that I've read about it, is it actually takes the stale and negative energy out of the air and replaces it with this positive energy. And everybody in my family, every woman in my family laughs like this.
And that's
my
brilliant.
mother will get on the phone and she'll be like, hello, and then she'll laugh for a half an hour and then go, okay, talk to you later. And she didn't even say anything.
But that's great, right? Because, I mean, and look at what people said to you. No one's going to date you because you're like, I mean, what does that even mean?
Because I'm too loud. My laughter brings attention,
But you see,
whatever. I don't know. That's the
a
way
child
I laugh.
doesn't think about that.
I
They
know.
laugh, they play, and so if we want to encourage viewers to do something to find that authenticity, it's to be able to do something like that.
Right.
You know, that saying, dance like no one is watching, right?
Right.
Do that. Live in the moment. Be a child.
Yep.
Doesn't matter how old you are.
That's right. So be a child and come back next time and learn some new things. And thanks for coming out. I'd like to thank the sponsors. Thank Tariq. You can watch this episode on YouTube, Vimeo, The Big Book of Beauty, Health Local. And if you want to see something, let me know, and I will do my very best to find a healer that will educate you about it. And if you have any comments, questions, please let me know. If you're a healer and you want to be on the show, contact me. I'd love to talk to you. So have a wonderful, wonderful new day and see everything brand new. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.